So I wanted to make a video just about some of my observations about the way that you celebrate the Christmas season and some of the things that you kind of just see every year, uh, in different places. And I guess as a starting point, there was a meme that was going around. There's many of them, but, for instance, somebody posted this one that said, like, it was like from an atheist guy, and it said Christians hijack everything, and it was this whole list of all the Christmas traditions and their like supposed pagan origins or whatever. And the responses to that, of course there are some Christians, like really fundamentalist Christians, who are really so concerned about that they won't have a Christmas tree or things like that. And but most Christians are totally fine with the fact that it's either not historically true, and that may be how they want to argue it and say these things are not in fact pagan in origin, or they'll just say it's okay, we have recaptured those symbols and it's syncretism or whatever, but in a good way. And this is kind of, I would say, maybe big on the like trad side of things, and you have things like it's been going on for a long time where you'll have things like Dante, he's using Virgil in his Divine Comedy, and it's kind of like Christianizing the pagan world. And we have this thing, it's like Plato and Aristotle are like virtuous saints before the time of Christ, or Alexander the Great, or all these things that we hear, especially like in the medieval thing, and that's obviously something that people are really big into. There's kind of a lot of that kind of stuff around our little corner. And like there was one response where somebody was, I couldn't find the one. There's some other ones that were like it, but there's the guy crying like, oh, Christmas is pagan, and like the little Orthodox guys like, Toyotathon is ours now, and Shark Week is ours now. We're taking all of your holidays, like, so it's kind of celebrating this aspect of Christianity that can absorb things from other places and integrate it into our practice. And of course, I think where it butts up, the true aspect of it is that there are aspects of culture, there's nothing intrinsically sinful or wrong about them, because if you only hold to a particular type of culture being sacred, then you are insisting that people conform to that particular culture just in order to be part of God's family. And I don't think that is, it's definitely not something like an evangelical person could support. Like in Islam, for instance, it's the insistence that you must speak Arabic, and you kind of eventually, countries that become Islamicized will all reflect Arab culture to a certain degree. Now, there will be the variety within that, but the scope of the variety is very much closed off to the parameters of what you allow in. And then you have the same thing like in a Hasidic community where you only speak Hebrew, or one where they only speak Yiddish, or if you were speaking Greek in the Greek church, or Latin in the earlier days of Catholicism and things like that. It's the kind of the spirit of Hellenization, to say like somebody has to adopt the culture first and then they can receive the truths. Whereas I think Christianity is a religion of universal truths, and so it is good, and it can fit and adapt to other things. I would even say that's kind of baked into the story around Christmas time through the story of the wise men, because no one would say that these are Jews. These are pagan magi of some kind, Babylonian or whatever, and they're coming to visit Jesus. So it's already like explaining the universality of the need for a savior, because that message is so baked into Genesis, and it's spread to all of the nations, the need for a savior. While we kind of like can think that's cool, and we get really excited about how like medieval Christians kind of Christianized pagan myths and things, and we kind of celebrate that in some areas of our circle. I feel like when we see it in the current day, we think it's cringy, we don't like it, or we try to categorically say it's a different thing. And if this is connected to, the thing I did about LARP Christianity, how, why not just make it, you could make the cultural aspects are not, the particulars are not what it's about. It's not about if you use no musical instruments, traditional musical instruments, or modern musical instruments. There's really not a difference in that. If you think there is, if you think that that's a thing that makes somebody in or out, you're wrong. It's fine if you're saying that's what works for our little community, because then people who have a preference for that can find their community. If somebody thinks that using a piano is sinful, they can go to the church where they only sing a cappella. If somebody thinks that pipe organs, which, as I mentioned, is they're technological wonders, really. But if somebody thinks that that is okay and traditional, but like an electric guitar or a modern keyboard is not, then that's fine. They can go to the church where they have that. That's like a conscience thing. But I just wanted to bring this kind of topic up in light of a few things. So, we have little kids, and there's lots of free stuff you can do around the holidays, put on by different churches. So we went to this one thing at a Assemblies of God church, a big one that has a lot of volunteers and is able to put on big things. And they have this big light thing, and I'll show some little clips I put in, where they basically had a theme this year. It was the theme of the thing was sort of based on the Super Mario Brothers movie, and so they had all these different stations as you walked through with scenes from the Nativity story, and they were all these 8-bit design icons with little Mario-esque characteristics kind of inserted into it. And there was this annoying snowflake that would talk, and he would do Mario voices. And
I hope you enjoyed your adventure at Westover Field of Lights. Goodbye and Merry Christmas. Blake out.
All this weird thing. Obviously it's this is for kids. Kids are supposed to think it's fun and exciting. And then they even had, at the end, they had characters dressed up from Mario and Peach and Koopa, and the kids could take a picture with them. And so they had all this stuff. And I know so many people would just be like, oh, this is so cringy. It's this thing, this seeker-sensitive thing, or trying to reach out to the culture. And I just think as a useful thought experiment, we should think about that is very much a way that it seems to us right now for many people, because you have this concept of Christianity as being sacred and holy, and to see it mashed up against this movie about a video game from our childhood, it seems irreverent and disrespectful and all that. So that was one. But I'm thinking okay, that may be the way that we feel now, but how did the first person think when they read the Divine Comedy or something? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much. Because who is that more offensive to? The thing with the Mario, the people who came because they're just free Christmas lights, something to do with kids, and they don't care so much about the Jesus part of the story. They're going to this thing purely for the fact that it's a fun, free event. But then they are hearing, oh yes, the real meaning of Christmas is about the birth of the Savior. Are they, if they don't have a prior concept of the sacred in connection with faith and Christianity, will they be offended? Probably not. So that is really a Christian bias that we're kind of importing into the situation. So, I think that's something that we ought to think about, because in the other way, like when you think about some of these older writings, that church fathers, or some of the things like Augustine put in, I've read some of City of God, and he's kind of like taking the stuff that's going on, the plays that they're watching, that people were like, oh, it's just entertainment, and he's saying like, no, like, this, like, there's a real God and there's significance to it, and he's kind of doing the mashup. And for the people who are outside the church, I think it is an effective thing, and I think that's why that kind of syncretism exists. Anyway, that's just to say, it may be cringy to us, but I think that we need to take a step back from that and think about why we feel that way, and if it's really something we should be criticizing.